bring in nuclear expert John Price. He's a principal at Integrity Partners, and he joins us from Melbourne. So good to see you, John. First of all, let me ask you about this meeting being held behind closed doors. Is that a mistake, and does it not bode well for the future, given we need more transparency, not less?
Well, I think the issue relates to adding an extra layer of regulation over the existing regulations. So there will be some countries that are happy with that and some countries that are against it. There are many countries that are well regulated at the moment and other countries that may not be. We don't really know how equal the regulation system is across the world. So there is a point in the meeting, but it is definitely going to be a negotiation because nobody really wants to invite another lot of regulators into their country.
So this is about learning lessons from Fukushima, but also looking at whether there should be some sort of international law or international body like the IAEA that goes in and checks the reactors in different countries. Now, Russia and France have said that they do want the IAEA or somebody to be in charge of this. Countries like the US and India don't want somebody else coming in and looking at their reactors. Why not?
Well, they're going to say that they have adequate levels of regulation and they don't need another level. Every form of regulation is in fact a compromise between what the power station wants and what the operators want and what the regulator wants. The regulator can always think of ways of making things more difficult, more safe, but this always adds cost to the operation. So additional safety always adds cost. Now, the very simple example of is the Fukushima plant itself, where recently they changed the tsunami level from 3.7 to 5.1 metres. And that's because the regulator was asking them to improve it. Well, the fact is the actual wave that arrived was 14 metres high. So the issue is, why wasn't it 14 metres high? It's because that costs money. That costs a lot of extra time and effort. And this is a regulation, is a kind of agreement.
The argument, John Price, is that the national regulators or the regulators within the country are too close to those nuclear operators, the likes of TEPCO. Whereas if you had an international body, they'd tell it like it is and they'd expose you if you weren't protecting your reactors adequately.
Everybody works for somebody. All regulatory commissions work for their government, and their government may or may not be interested in having nuclear power. So things can be adjusted there's still a political influence there. If you talk about the International Atomic Energy Authority, it'd be quite keen to prove how useful it is, so it'll try to go into some countries and make changes. That will be how they'll justify their existence.
John, has that disaster exposed the industry as not being safe enough, or do you think that we're overreacting here? Was it a one-off scenario?
Well, the problem in the nuclear industry is going to be financing now. The issue with Fukushima is that incident is going to cost huge amounts of money. TEPCO has been prevented from going bankrupt. I think that was an option a few weeks ago, and the government has stepped in and prevented it from getting bankrupt. And every operator could become bankrupt unless it's backed up by government. So we now have a financial consequence of these incidents which far exceeds the capability of insurance companies or private businesses to handle. And that's where the problem will lie.
Okay, John Price, we're going to have to leave it there. From Principal Integrity Partners in Melbourne, thanks very much for your insight.